This is a first-in-human trial. Randomized clinical trials are really the highest level of evidence for looking at a new pharmaceutical. And this is a trial looking at patients with dry eye disease. Specifically, they're patients who have moderate to severe dry eye disease and also have an autoimmune systemic disease. So it's a specific population, and we have a treatment that really targets this group of patients. And they were randomized to either eye drops twice a day, the ILYX-002, or the vehicle that the pharmaceutical was prepared in. So one or the other, and they were treated for 8 weeks and evaluated during that time period. And of course, I should mention that it was mass. That means that neither the patient nor the ophthalmologist who were looking at the patients, they didn't know which drop they were getting. So they had an independent evaluation of what's going on, both from the patient and the clinician who was looking at the patient. It works differently than steroids. Steroids are a good immune mechanism of treatment, but the ILYX-002, as it's currently called, is really a potent immune modulator. Well, what do I mean? It works specifically on Th17 and Th1. So it doesn't, immune mechanisms are specific. We talk about immunology, but there's really a lot of specific mechanisms. And frankly, these are what are targeted in these autoimmune systemic diseases like Sjogren's or rheumatoid arthritis or other autoimmune diseases. So it might actually be a whole lot better, as it turns out, from our clinical trial than steroids, which are sort of, overview. They are sort of broad spectrum, but they're not precise or precision targeted. What we look at in a clinical trial, the first thing we look at is statistical significance. Is the treatment better than the vehicle, the control group? Fortunately, we did see great results in this clinical trial. But the other part of the question is it clinically significant? If it's so small and compare, you can maybe measure it, but it's not real, we may be less excited either as clinicians or even patients. One of the nice things that we saw in this trial is corneal staining and lissamine staining. There was significant improvement that seems clinically significant as well. So that's great. We want something that's rapid, and we want something that really works. And that's what we saw in this, very first trial. So it's not as big as some of the future trials will do, but we already saw very significant results. Well, this is a good question about symptoms. First of all, when you look at dry eye patients, they complain a lot about symptom related issues, watching TV, driving, computer work, etc. So those everyday activities are important to our dry eye patients, and that's where they feel the impact of their dry eye disease. So whenever dry eye trial, we do measure symptoms, and there are different ways of measuring. They're usually questionnaires, and the results did show improvement. I have not actually seen, I'm a consultant for the company, a clinical advisor. I have not seen all the results on the symptom scores, but it did look improvement. And I think as we get a bigger population, we'll be able to flesh out exactly which area they improved and how much. But the other thing that you look at is tolerability. So some things that seem to work for dry eyes also caused a lot of stinging and eye irritation. The good news is both the vehicle and the treatment, both groups, the control and the active, showed great tolerability. I mean, either no symptoms or very mild. That's important to patients too, because even if it works in the long run, if every time you put it in, it burns and irritates, they may be less than excited about continuing to use it. Good question. So, not all autoimmune diseases are the same, and therefore response could definitely be different. We are targeting a group that is known from other research that they gave Th17 as a mechanism of action in the systemic disease. And since this drop works in that area, Th1 and Th17, we expect it to be effective as well. To do subgroup analyses, that's a post hoc analysis or after the study is done, and you really need to be powered up to, do a subgroup. So everybody in our clinical trial had a systemic autoimmune disease, but it could have been rheumatoid arthritis, it could have been lupus, thyroid disease, Sjogren's. So we didn't power it for any one of those diseases. I think the exciting thing of this approach and this company is they are targeting therapy. So when we look at other human diseases that are obviously important, cancer, and more recently obesity, we're starting to target treatment, not just, something that'll kill the cancer cells, something that'll be specific for that specific cancer for that specific patient. And I think that's what we're doing with eye drops, for dry eyes specifically. Instead of all comers, everybody, blah, 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 we're targeting those that we feel are often eliminated in clinical trials. They may say, oh, you have an autoimmune disease. We don't want you in the trial. We're worried that your other medicines would interfere with the results, et cetera. So I think this is sort of a new day for dry eye treatment to hone in on what the patient has and what the best treatment is for that patient. Yet another big question. We do have some treatments available for dry eye disease, but we aren't always as specific as we would like to be and to personalize and really hone in on what the patient needs. So our other immune modulators are a little bit more broad spectrum. Some of them do have some efficacy, but not for everybody. And one of the ways you can do this is ask the patients. So if you ask the patients, are you happy with your treatment? Maybe 20% say they're satisfied, and all of a lot say they're not. And when you look at whether or not they renew their medicines at the end of the year, whatever medicine they got, I mean, some studies suggest over 90% don't renew it because they don't feel it gave them the effect they want. So I think here we're looking at a treatment that's going to be precise. We're going to target the patients that are often left out and more severe dry eyes that are not really being targeted with current treatment. So, will it work in everybody? Well, eventually we may find out. But right now we're targeting where we feel the drug is going to be most effective, and that is as an immune modulator from patients who have an inflammatory mechanism related to their disease. Yes. So the question is, will an immune modulator work in diseases that maybe aren't quite as targeted? I mean, the goal of our drug, to be honest, is to be precise and to be targeted, a little bit like that cancer therapy, or what is your mechanism, and we're going to target that treatment, and that's what we'd like to do in disease as well. Will it be useful in others? Probably. We'll have to evaluate that. It may even have efficacy in other parts of the eye and other eye disease where inflammation is an important part of that disease. So I think we can broaden it as we go forward. But I think we have a good mechanism that matches what patients need. And I think that's where we want to go with the phase 3 to look at that and understand it fully. I think if I wanted to sum up about ILYX-002, this is the first in human trials, the phase 2. What we really showed is great onset, rapid onset at week 2, but equally good is durability for 8 weeks. So that's great in terms of the ocular surface. In addition, we have great tolerability, good safety, all those important things that we need for considering an eye drop that's going to be used by many different people. So definitely an unmet need and an opportunity to address it effectively.